Pine Island, as you know, was one of the hardest hit by Hurricane Ian. It's completely cut off from the mainland and really from the world. The only way on is by boat or by air. That makes recovery desperate, frantic efforts.
Our Evan Dean spent the last 2 days on the island and shows us the dire situation there.
This is what it looked like from Chip Farrar's second-story apartment in Matlacha as he and Tamara Redden rode out Hurricane Ian.
So she was standing in the living room, and I was over near the kitchen when the window blew out, and I just told her to run to the bathroom and lock herself in.
After the storm passed, they discovered it was Redden's home, just nearby, that got it worse.
Overwhelming. It's too much.
Just look at her neighborhood from above. Rubble, ruins, a full-blown disaster. She took us inside the mess, even showed us the bed she's still sleeping in. Nowhere else to go.
Has it set in yet?
Probably not.
Both sides of Matlacha are impassable by car right now. This is on the east side, and this is just west. It's made getting to Pine Island at all a major challenge. And here there is damage everywhere, north in Bokeelia, and even worse, south to St. James City. Here, like Matlacha, homes like Tom Hahn's are destroyed.
You know, it's the most empty, gut-wrenching feeling in the world.
Nobody's talking about Pine Island. Nobody's talking about Bokeelia, St. James.
Today in Matlacha, Marilyn Trejo is desperate to get out a message, a plea about these communities that are, in many ways, stranded.
We're just being forgotten here. There's no fuel, no water, there's nothing, and people are running out of resources.
In no bigger way is the desperation here felt than through people like Susan McGuire.
I'll never stay for a hurricane again.
She and husband Jim Downer were distraught, scrambling today to get to the mainland. They were at home in Pineland during the hurricane, but her daughter Elizabeth was in Cape Coral.
Wednesday evening, she called 911. She was in danger, medical issues. She's got some medical issues, but they had shut off emergency services, and by the time they found her on Friday, she was gone. She was gone, and I can't get to her.
Yeah, guys, I mean, that's the human toll of this. It was heartbreaking. We have lives lost. We have a mother who can't get to her daughter who was found dead after the storm. I've tried desperately to get back in touch with Susan. Any communication from the island's been brutal. I am hopeful that she and her husband were able to get back to mainland because they want to see their daughter, even though, you know, it's an awful situation.
I can't imagine the pain they're going through. And finally, Lee County is offering some way for these people to get off the island.
Yeah, so
is it the county?
Yeah, the county put out an alert today. They're actually working with the Coast Guard. The county specifically is asking the residents of Pine Island to evacuate. We know that some people obviously already have evacuated, but with the Coast Guard putting together an effort, people are asked to go tomorrow to the fire department on Pine Island Road. They're going to be trucked to the Yucatan waterfront, then boated across Matlacha Pass to D&D Bait and Tackle. From there, Lee Tran buses are going to take them to a shelter.
Okay, so if you're able to hear us on Pine Island,
that's what I mean. How are they going to find out?
If you know someone who's on Pine Island, have any way to reach them, hopefully, you know, emergency responders are there with a bullhorn letting people know. But is it mandatory?
No, it's not mandatory. And
I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to stay, but some people just...
I will say, you know, there's obviously a lot of people who have nowhere else to go, who need a place to stay. They have to get off the island. I will say, Pine Island, it is incredibly blue collar. It is incredibly self-sufficient, independent. And there are people I spoke with today who said, we are not leaving.
They can fish for their own food. There's fruits and vegetables out there, whatever trees. I believe it because they're hardy people on Pine Island.
The resiliency by these people is stunning. They had just people who live on the island who were driving around in tractors, taking care of power lines that had fallen halfway across the road.
It is very much I can do this myself, which explains why a fair amount of people stayed on the island because I don't want to say they underestimated it, but I think they just feel like we can handle whatever gets thrown our way.
I think what the challenge is long-term, guys, is going to be two things. It's going to be power, because it's not a matter of fixing down wires. It's a matter of rebuilding a system.
The entire thing.
And it's a matter of resources. When you're talking about busing or helicoptering in gas, water, food, and that's the only way you can get resources, or a barge, how long can that last?
Same thing. I was talking to somebody on Sanibel. He said, my neighbor thinks he's staying. And I said, well, we'll see how long that lasts when he's constantly having to take a boat back and forth I mean, it doesn't seem sustainable, I would think, to most of our viewers, but.
I will say, I didn't think so, and for most people, it probably isn't. But some of the folks out here are unbelievably self-sufficient. They kind of live out in their own little corner and stay there, and they have boats, they have means to get back and forth.
They'll go to ship stores and they'll pick up supplies and go back. Is there anything we can do for them, do you think?
Well, and obviously you heard the people in Matlacha where it is rubble, and a lot of those folks don't have a place to go back to. They were begging for help. They you know, whereas there are some who are very independent, there are others who desperately need resources. They need more shelters to be set up. They need more. And they feel like, I'll be honest, they feel like their community is being a little bit forgotten about here. And obviously we know devastations happen on Fort Myers Beach. It's happened on Sanibel. But I will say there's a lot of people who are still on Pine Island who they don't have another home to go to. I think this area is going to be an area where we are going to really need to be focusing on how are these people doing? Where can we get them to?
Because it's not as touristy, and it's not a lot of winter.
Right.
These are year-round, hardworking people who live in this community.
And it's their only home. And I will say, it was only by the grace and generosity of the people of Pine Island that we were even able to do this story.
Right. 2 days out there.
Let me just hit you with this real quick. We, on just a whim, went to the Burnt Store Road boat dock in Cape Coral. Found strangers to take us out. They had to go, so we're literally hitchhiking in Bokeelia. Lady picks us up on the side of the road. Hey, how you doing? Where do you need to go? Drove us up to Bokeelia. Drove us down to St. James City. And there's a guy down there who had set up a Starlink Wi-Fi in St. James City so people could reach out to their loved ones. From there, we did have a place to stay last night. And the place we stayed at, the neighbor who's not there, let us borrow his BMW so we could charge our laptops, our phones, so we can get around today. And then today, we had another group of people who boated us back. So when these people they say Islanders support Islanders, they do, because we felt that today.
Incredible
and
story.
Without them, we couldn't have done any of this. And I'll tell you what, they were more than willing, because they're desperate for their story to get told. You know, if we can't get out there though, it's like,
yes, I know. Trust me, we want to be out there as much as we possibly can. It's just very difficult. I mean, you heard what Evan had to do to bring you this firsthand account, and we're so glad that you were the one who did it, because you're the perfect guy to tell this story.
And you're going to tell more stories throughout the next hour and a half,
we need to remember, you know, everybody in our community, and it's easy, you know, there's so many places that are hurting, and this is one that is hurting too.
Yes.
Well, thank you for telling their stories. We appreciate it.
And I know you've had a long 36 hours, you know, probably haven't slept. I mean, you stayed on the island, so.
Yeah, but you get to go home to a bed.
And that's what I thought about on the boat ride back. I thought, you know, I get to go home to my wife and my family and sleep in my bed. And some of the people on the island, they're doing this
every day.
for an extended period of time. Who knows how long.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.